My heart shattered when I found that filthy tube of lube in my husband's car, a dagger of betrayal after 35 years. I swapped it with industrial glue and watched firefighters rip him and his vile mistress apart as our town gawked in horror. Stay for my story of rage and revenge. Subscribe and scream in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Margaret Thompson Maggie, to everyone in Franklin, Tennessee. For 35 years, I poured my heart into my flower shop, Petals of Grace, arranging roses and lilies for weddings, funerals, and every moment in between. My shop sits on Main Street, where the smell of fresh blooms mixes with the warm chatter of our tight-knit town. I built a life I thought was unbreakable, with my husband Harold, a retired banker who once carried my flower crates with a proud smile. Our son Tom is the fire chief, a man of honor who'd run into a burning building for anyone. His wife, Laura, a sharp-witted journalist, felt like the daughter I never had. We'd laugh over coffee, her bright eyes sparkling as she called me Mom. Our family was the kind you see on postcards, perfect, or so I believed. But lately, Harold's changed. His business trips to Memphis stretched longer, his eyes dodging mine at dinner. "Just catching up with old clients, Maggie," he'd mumble, his voice flat, like he was reading a script. Last Sunday, as I set out chrysanthemums for the church fair, he rushed out, claiming a meeting 50 miles away. His cologne lingered, but so did a strange, sweet scent floral, but not mine. My stomach twisted. Something was wrong, and I could feel it in my bones. I stood in my shop, staring at our old wedding photo, Harold's arm around me, and wondered if it was all a lie. The truth was closer than I feared, and it would tear my world apart. That Sunday evening, after Harold rushed out for his so-called Memphis meeting, I stood alone in Petals of Grace, the scent of lilies heavy in the air. The wedding photo on the counter, Harold's arm around me, both of us beaming 35 years ago, felt like a cruel mockery. His excuses had grown flimsier, his eyes avoiding mine like a guilty child's. I locked up the shop and headed home, my heart pounding with a gnawing dread I couldn't shake. Our house, a cozy 2-story on Maple Lane, was dark except for the porch light flickering like my fading trust. Harold's old Ford pickup was still in the driveway, engine cold, as if he'd never left town. My hands trembled as I opened the front door, the silence inside thicker than Tennessee fog. In the living room, Harold's jacket lay crumpled on the couch, his phone beside it, screen glowing like a traitor's confession. "Just a quick look," I whispered to myself, my voice barely audible. Harold always said, "Maggie, I'm no good with tech, too complicated." So why was his phone buzzing with a new message? My fingers hovered, guilt battling curiosity. But I tapped the screen. A text from LB stared back at me. "Last night was incredible, darling. Can't wait for more." A red heart emoji stabbed my chest, sharp as a thorn. LB? Who was LB? My breath caught, and I scrolled up. But the chat was empty, too clean. Like he'd scrubbed away his sins. I set the phone down, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped it, and stumbled to the kitchen to steady myself. The next morning I found Harold's wallet on the counter, a receipt sticking out like a flag of betrayal. I pulled it free, a bill from the Peddler's Steakhouse in Nashville, 45 miles away, dated last night. Harold swore he was in Memphis, 200 miles west. The receipt listed a $120 bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, the same wine we'd shared on our 20th anniversary, when he toasted my flower shop's first big order. My knees buckled. Memphis. My foot. I muttered, my voice cracking with rage. The receipt showed a dinner for 2 filet mignon and shrimp linguine, dishes we hadn't shared in years. I snapped a photo of it with my phone, my hands steadying as anger replaced shock. Who was he whining and dining in Nashville while lying to my face? That evening, after Harold called to say he'd be late again, I couldn't sit still. I grabbed his keys and marched to his truck in the garage, the air thick with gasoline and a cloying, unfamiliar perfume, not my soft lavender, but something bold, like jasmine. My flashlight swept the driver's seat, nothing but a crumpled coffee cup. Then I opened the glove compartment, and my heart stopped. A half-used tube of personal lubricant, cap loose, residue crusted on the rim, lay there like a guilty secret. Harold and I hadn't been intimate in years. He always blamed age, exhaustion, anything but the truth. "What's this for, Harold?" I hissed, my voice trembling with fury. I held the tube, its slick plastic burning my palm, and took a photo, my mind racing. That jasmine scent clung to it, a brazen clue screaming infidelity. I stormed back inside, the house suffocating me. At the kitchen table, I stared at the receipt again, the wine's name mocking me. "Who are you, LB?" I whispered, my voice raw. I thought of Laura, our daughter-in-law, always so polished, her journalist smile charming everyone at church potlucks. Could it be her? No, I told myself she called me Mom. Helped arrange flowers for Tom's fire station fundraiser. But doubt gnawed deeper. I remembered her at our last family dinner, avoiding Harold's gaze. Her laugh too sharp, too forced. Was it an act? My chest tightened, each breath a struggle, as if the walls were closing in. I called Eleanor Hayes, my oldest friend and owner of the Cozy Corner Cafe. "Eleanor, something's wrong," I said, my voice breaking. "Harold's lying, and I found things. I need to know the truth." Eleanor's voice was steady, warm. "Maggie, you're stronger than you know. I've got a guy, a private investigator, Paul Carter. He's discreet. Meet him tomorrow at my cafe." I hung up, my hands still clutching the receipt photo on my phone. The truth was out there, and I was done being the fool. I'd find out who Harold was betraying me with, even if it tore my heart to pieces. Tomorrow, I'd take the first step toward unraveling his lies, and nothing would stop me. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table in our Franklin home, the receipt from the Peddler Steakhouse, and the photo of that cursed lube tube burning holes in my phone. The scent of jasmine from Harold's truck still haunted me, a ghost of betrayal that wouldn't leave. My coffee had gone cold, untouched, as I stared at the clock ticking relentlessly on the wall, a wedding gift from my mother, each tick a stab at my unraveling life. Harold shuffled downstairs, his gray hair mussed, eyes heavy with something darker than fatigue. "Morning, Maggie," he mumbled, grabbing his mug without looking at me. "Another late meeting today, probably back after 9. His voice was hollow, rehearsed, like a liar's script. I nodded, my lips tight, forcing a smile that felt like swallowing glass. "Be safe," I said. But inside, my heart screamed. "Who are you lying to me for, Harold?" After he left, I drove to Eleanor's Cozy Corner Cafe, the 2-mile trip a blur of rage and dread. Eleanor greeted me with a warm hug, her eyes sharp with concern. "Maggie, Paul Carter's waiting in the back," she whispered, guiding me to a quiet booth where a stocky man in a plaid shirt sat, sipping black coffee. Paul's face was weathered, his gaze steady as I handed him my phone with the photo's receipt, lube, and that damning LB text. "I think Harold's cheating," I said, my voice cracking like dry wood. "I need the truth, no matter how ugly." Paul nodded, scribbling in a small notebook. "Mrs. Thompson, I'll start tailing him today. I'll get answers. Go home, act normal." I thanked him, but my hands shook as I clutched my purse, the weight of 35 years of trust crumbling. That night, alone in Petals of Grace, I arranged peonies for a funeral order, each petal a reminder of the life I thought I had. My phone buzzed Paul's number. My heart pounded as I opened his message. A photo of Harold outside a Nashville jazz bar, his arm around a woman in a sleek black dress. I zoomed in, and the world stopped. It was Laura Bennett, my daughter-in-law, her hair loose, her smile too intimate, too wrong. Harold's hand rested on her waist, his eyes soft in a way he hadn't looked at me in decades. Another photo showed them laughing, clinking wine glasses, their bodies angled like lovers, not family. My knees gave out, and I sank to the floor, petals scattering like my broken dreams. Paul's next message was a voice clip, recorded from a distance but clear enough to gut me. Laura's voice, sharp and ambitious, cut through. "Harold, darling, when can we push Maggie out of the flower shop? It's worth a fortune, and she's too old to notice." Harold chuckled, low and cruel. "Don't worry, sweetheart. Maggie trusts me blindly. The shop's ours soon." I clutched my chest, gasping, as if their words had stolen my air. Laura, who I'd taught to arrange bouquets, who called me Mom at Thanksgiving, was plotting to steal my life's work with my own husband. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a calculated theft of everything I'd built. I stumbled to the back room, where I kept old family photos in a dusty album. There we were, Harold, Tom, Laura, and me at Tom's 40th birthday last year, smiling at the Franklin Town Square. Laura's arm was around Tom, but now I saw the lie in her eyes, the way she glanced at Harold. I slammed the album shut, tears burning my cheeks. "How could you?" I whispered, my voice raw, as if they could hear me. My son Tom, the fire chief who'd give his life for this town, deserved better than this double betrayal. I thought of his proud grin at our last family barbecue, oblivious to the vipers in his home. My heart shattered not just for me, but for him. I called Eleanor, my voice trembling. "It's Laura," I said, choking on the words. "She's with Harold, planning to take my shop." Eleanor gasped. "Maggie, that's vile. What do you need?" I wiped my tears, rage rising like a storm. "I need Paul to keep digging. I'm not letting them destroy us." As I hung up, I stared at the scattered peonies, their beauty now a cruel irony. The pain was unbearable, a knife twisting deeper with every memory of Harold's lies and Laura's fake smiles. But something shifted inside me, a spark of fury, a need for justice. They thought I was a naive old woman, but they'd underestimated Maggie Thompson. I'd make them pay, and I knew exactly how. The pain of Harold and Laura's betrayal burned like a wildfire in my chest. But in that dark back room of petals of grace, surrounded by scattered peonies, a new resolve took root. I wasn't just Maggie Thompson, the trusting wife of 35 years. I was a woman scorned, and I'd make them feel every ounce of the agony they'd inflicted. Franklin, Tennessee, might be a sleepy town, but it was about to witness a reckoning. I wiped my tears, my hands steadying as I gripped my phone. Paul Carter's photos of Harold and Laura still glowing on the screen. Their scheming words, Laura's cold plan to steal my flower shop. Harold's cruel chuckle echoed in my mind. They thought I was weak, a fool blinded by love. They were wrong. I drove the 2 miles to my house on Maple Lane under a starless sky, the air thick with the scent of impending rain. Inside, I sat at the kitchen table, the clock's relentless ticking mocking my shattered life. Harold's pickup keys glinted on the counter, a silent invitation. I grabbed them, my heart pounding like a drum, and headed to the garage. The Ford's door creaked open, and that jasmine perfume Laura's scent hit me like a slap. I opened the glove compartment, and there it was, the half-used tube of lube, its cap loose, a monument to their deceit. I held it, my fingers trembling with rage, and whispered, "You'll pay for this, Harold." I wasn't just hurt, I was furious, ready to turn their dirty secret into their downfall. Back in the kitchen, I dug through the utility drawer, finding a tube of industrial superglue I'd used to fix a broken vase at the shop. Its label promised unbreakable bonds, and a bitter smile curled my lips. "Perfect," I muttered. I unscrewed the lube's cap, the sticky residue making my stomach churn, and carefully poured out its contents into the sink. Drop by drop, I filled the tube with glue, shaking it gently to mimic the original's texture. I tested a dab on my finger. It looked identical, slick and deceptive. "Let's see how romantic you feel now," I said, my voice low, a storm brewing inside me. I wiped the tube clean, placed it back in the glove compartment, and adjusted the truck seat exactly as it was, leaving no trace of my tampering. But glue wasn't enough. I needed their shame exposed to the whole town, not just whispered in shadows. At Petals of Grace the next morning, while arranging roses for a wedding order, I hatched the rest of my plan. I'd set a trap to draw attention, smoke, chaos, and the Franklin Fire Department, led by my son Tom. In the shop's back room, I found an old skillet and a bottle of cooking oil from last year's church potluck. I'd rig it to ignite remotely, creating a plume of black smoke to alarm the neighbors. I tested the setup at home, tying a thin string to the stove's igniter, running it through the kitchen window to a heavy coffee can outside. One pull, and the oil would catch fire, sending smoke billowing. Just enough to panic the street, I murmured, dousing the test flame quickly. I needed more evidence, something undeniable to shatter their lies. I pulled out Tom's old college recorder, its batteries still good, and hid it behind a bookshelf in our bedroom, tucked under a photo of our family at Tom's fire station promotion. The irony stung Laura smiling in that photo, Harold's arm around me, all lies. I set the recorder to continuous mode, ensuring it would capture every word, every sound. "You won't hide this time," I whispered, my voice trembling with purpose. I called Eleanor, my voice steady now. "Eleanor, I'm setting a trap. Can I watch from your place tomorrow?" She paused, then said, "Maggie, you're scaring me, but I'm with you. Be careful." Her trust fueled my resolve. To seal the plan, I needed Harold and Laura to feel safe. At dinner, I played the dutiful wife, setting out meatloaf and mashed potatoes. "Harold, I'm heading to Chattanooga tomorrow for a big flower contract," I said, my tone calm despite the fire in my veins. "Might be late. Can you handle things here?" His eyes lit up, not with concern but with relief, a predator sensing freedom. "Sure, Maggie," he said, squeezing my hand too lightly. "Go get that deal. I'll be fine." His smile was a lie, and I matched it with one of my own. "Thanks, honey," I replied, my heart racing. As he ate, oblivious, I saw Laura's name flash on his phone, quickly silenced. Tomorrow, they'd walk into my trap, and Franklin would see their true faces. The dawn broke over Franklin, Tennessee, with a gray chill that matched the ice in my veins. I stood in my kitchen on Maple Lane, clutching a cold coffee mug, the skillet and oil trap ready on the stove, its string tethered to a coffee can outside the window. The hidden recorder hummed behind the bookshelf in our bedroom, poised to capture every damning word. Harold, oblivious, snored upstairs, his keys still on the counter where I'd returned them after swapping his lube for industrial superglue. My heart pounded, not with fear but with a righteous fury. Today, Harold and Laura would walk into my trap, and the whole town would see their betrayal exposed. I grabbed my purse, kissed the photo of Tom on the mantel, a reminder of who I was fighting for, and headed out, pretending to leave for Chattanooga. Instead of the bus station, I crossed the street to Eleanor Hayes' house, her cozy corner cafe closed for the morning. Eleanor opened her door, her eyes wide with worry. "Maggie, you sure about this?" she asked, pouring me coffee. "They've hurt you enough." I nodded, my voice steady. "Eleanor, they wanted my shop, my life. They'll get what's coming." She handed me a chair by her front window, 50 feet from my house, a perfect view of the driveway. I plugged in my earbuds, connected to the recorder's app, and waited, my pulse racing like a freight train. At 10:15, a yellow taxi pulled up. Laura Bennett stepped out, her floral dress too bright for the gray morning, dark sunglasses hiding her eyes like a cheap disguise. Harold opened our front door, glancing nervously down Maple Lane before ushering her inside. My earbuds crackled with sound: Laura's sharp laugh, the clink of glasses, Harold's low murmur. "Finally, no more sneaking to Nashville," he said, his voice smug. Laura giggled, her tone venomous. "Good riddance to that old fool, Maggie. This house'll be ours soon." My blood boiled, my fists clenching. "Call me a fool?" I whispered, my voice trembling with rage. The recorder caught the creak of our bed, Then unmistakable sounds that twisted my stomach, sounds I hadn't heard in our marriage for years. I forced myself to breathe, my hand hovering over my phone. "Not yet," I muttered, waiting for the perfect moment. The sounds grew louder, more frantic, until Laura's voice broke into a panicked scream. "Harold! What the hell? We're stuck," Harold growled. "Stop yelling! Let me, damn it, it's not budging." I smirked, a cold satisfaction washing over me. The glue was working, binding them in their own sin. I tapped my phone, activating the smoke trap. Across the street, the string pulled tight, igniting the skillet's oil. Black smoke billowed from my kitchen window, curling into the sky like a dark omen. Eleanor gasped beside me. "Maggie, your house." I feigned panic, but inside, I was calm, my plan unfolding perfectly. Neighbors spilled onto Maple Lane, shouting, "Fire at the Thompsons!" Old Mr. Jenkins, 80 and nosy, dialed 911. "Hurry, there's smoke everywhere," he yelled. Sirens wailed within minutes, and Tom's fire truck screeched to a stop, red lights flashing. My son, Tom Thompson, leapt out, his face grim, barking orders. "Hoses ready. Check for people inside." My heart ached for him, knowing what he'd find. Through my earbuds, Laura's sobs grew desperate. "Harold, do something, I can't move." Harold's voice was hoarse, frantic. "Shut up, I'm trying." But they were trapped, the glue an unbreakable shackle. Tom's sledgehammer splintered our front door, the sound echoing like a gunshot. His team stormed inside, hoses dragging. I held my breath, listening as their boots pounded up the stairs. Then Tom's voice, raw and broken, cut through the app. "Dad? Laura? What the hell is this?" A firefighter behind him muttered. "Jesus, Chief." Another choked back a laugh, quickly silenced by Tom's roar. "Quiet. Clear the room." The neighbors crowded closer, phones out, whispering. "Harold and his daughter-in-law? Disgusting." Mrs. Jenkins gasped, filming the chaos. Poor Maggie, how could they? The smoke was thinning. Tom's team had doused the small oil fire, but the real inferno was in that bedroom, where my son faced his father and wife, naked and glued together, their faces pale with shame. I sat frozen at Eleanor's window, my coffee untouched, as the crowd's murmurs grew louder. "They're carrying them out," someone shouted. Firefighters emerged, wrapping Harold and Laura in sheets, their bodies still stuck, writhing on stretchers. Laura's sobs were pitiful, Harold's mumbled pleas barely audible. The neighborhood watched, aghast, as phones recorded every humiliating second. Tom stood in the yard, his face ashen, his fire chief's helmet clutched in trembling hands. My heart broke for him, but this was justice. Harold and Laura had mocked our family, plotted to steal my shop. Now Franklin saw their true colors. But I wasn't done. At the hospital, I'd make them feel the sting of their betrayal again, and no one would forget Maggie Thompson's wrath. The sirens faded as the ambulance sped Harold and Laura to Franklin General Hospital, 3 miles from our smoke-filled house on Maple Lane. I stood at Eleanor Hayes's window, my heart a tangled knot of rage and sorrow, watching the crowd disperse. Their phones still buzzing with videos of Harold and Laura's humiliation. My son, Tom, lingered in our yard, his fire chief's helmet dangling in his hand, his face pale as a ghost. The pain I felt for him was sharper than my own, but I wasn't done. Harold and Laura thought they'd escape with just shame. They were wrong. I grabbed my purse, where I'd stashed 2 small jars of spicy mustard from the Cozy Corner Cafe's last chili cook-off, and headed to the hospital with Eleanor by my side. "Maggie, you're playing with fire," she warned, her voice low. "Good," I replied, my tone cold as steel. "Let them burn." At Franklin General, the sterile halls reeked of antiseptic, a stark contrast to the chaos I'd unleashed. I sat in the waiting area, my hands steady but my pulse racing, as Eleanor squeezed my arm. "You sure about this, Maggie?" she asked. I nodded, my eyes fixed on the double doors leading to the ER. They wanted my shop, my family. They'll get what they deserve. A nurse, her badge reading Clara, approached, her face soft with pity. Mrs. Thompson, they're stable. The glue caused no permanent damage, but they're in pain. You can see them now. I forced a trembling smile, playing the concerned wife. Thank you, Clara, I said, slipping the mustard jars into my coat pocket. In the ER, Harold and Laura lay in adjacent beds, separated by a thin curtain. Harold's face was ashen, his gray hair matted with sweat, while Laura clutched a sheet, her eyes red and puffy, her makeup streaked like a ruined painting. The air was thick with their shame. But I saw no remorse, only fear of being caught. Clara handed me 2 tubes of medicated ointment, her voice gentle. Apply this to their skin. It'll soothe the irritation. I nodded, my fingers brushing the mustard jars as she turned away. In one swift motion, I swapped the tubes, tucking the ointment into my purse and placing the mustard on the tray. My hands moved with the precision of a woman who'd arranged flowers for 35 years, each motion deliberate, unflinching. I stepped to Harold's bedside, my voice dripping with feigned concern. Harold, are you okay? He flinched, unable to meet my eyes. Maggie, I can explain, he stammered, his voice weak. Laura whimpered from her bed. Mrs. Thompson, please. It's not what you think. I leaned closer, my smile sharp as a blade. Save it, Laura, I know everything. I handed Harold the mustard tube, my heart pounding with cold satisfaction. Put this on. It'll help. Laura grabbed hers, desperate for relief, and they began to apply it, oblivious to my trap. Within seconds, Laura screamed, a raw, guttural sound that echoed through the ER. It burns! Oh God, it's burning! Harold cursed, his hands clawing at his skin. What the hell is this, Maggie? The mustard's fiery sting was my final jab, a taste of the agony they'd inflicted on me. Nurses rushed in, patients craning their necks from nearby rooms. A young orderly gasped. That's them, the ones from the viral video. Whispers spread like wildfire. Harold Thompson and his daughter-in-law caught in bed. An older woman in the hall shook her head, muttering, disgraceful. Poor Maggie. I stood back, my face a mask of shock. But inside, I felt a grim triumph. Clara returned, flustered, barking orders to flush their skin with water. Who gave them that? She demanded. I shrugged, my voice soft. Must have been a mix-up. Harold's eyes met mine, wide with realization, but he said nothing. His pride shattered. I pulled a manila envelope from my purse, the divorce papers I'd prepared after Paul Carter's evidence, and slapped them on Harold's bed. Sign these, I said, my voice ice, cold. You and Laura can have each other, but you're done with me and Tom. Laura sobbed. Tom, please, I'm sorry. But I cut her off. You don't get to beg, Laura. You wanted my shop, my life. Now you've got nothing. Harold reached for my hand, his voice trembling. Maggie, let's talk. I yanked away. Talk? You talked to her in my bed? The room fell silent, the weight of my words crushing them both. I turned to leave, but not before seeing Tom in the doorway, his face hard as stone, the divorce papers for Laura in his hand. This wasn't over. The hospital had seen their shame, but I'd ensure their betrayal followed them forever. The hospital hallway at Franklin General buzzed with whispers as I walked away from Harold and Laura's room, their mustard-induced screams fading behind me. My heart was heavy, not with regret but with the weight of a family shattered. The divorce papers I'd left on Harold's bed felt like the final nail in the coffin of our 35-year marriage, and Tom's silent, stony gaze as he stood by the door told me his own world had crumbled too. Outside, the Tennessee air was crisp, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the parking lot. Eleanor Hayes stood by her car, her face a mix of awe and concern. Maggie, you did it, she said, her voice soft. The whole town's talking. I nodded, my throat tight. They had to know, Eleanor, but it doesn't fix the hurt. She hugged me, and for a moment, I let myself lean into her strength, the pain of betrayal still raw. By the next morning, Franklin was ablaze with gossip. The video of Harold and Laura, wrapped in sheets and carried out on stretchers, had spread like wildfire across social media, shared by neighbors like Mr. Jenkins and even the church choir ladies. Caught in the act, father-in-law and daughter-in-law. One post read, racking up thousands of views. Harold, once a respected retired banker, and Laura, the polished journalist, were now pariahs. I heard from Eleanor that Harold had checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town, unable to face the stares at the local diner. Laura, humiliated, had fled to her sister's place in Knoxville, 180 miles away, her journalism career in tatters after her editor saw the scandal. The town's judgment was swift and merciless, just as I'd planned, but it didn't fill the hole in my chest. Tom moved back into our house on Maple Lane that week, his suitcase heavy with the weight of his broken marriage. "Mom, I can't stay in our old place," he said, his voice low, his eyes avoiding mine as he set his bag in his childhood bedroom. "Not after that." I touched his shoulder, my heart aching for my son, the fire chief who'd always been my pride. "We'll get through this, Tom," I said, forcing strength into my words. "You and me, we're enough." He nodded. But the silence between us was heavy, each of us grieving a family stolen by lies. Petals of Grace, my flower shop, became our sanctuary. Tom started helping with deliveries, his strong hands carrying crates of roses and tulips to churches and weddings across Franklin. The townsfolk rallied around us, their support a balm to our wounds. "Maggie, you're a rock," Mrs. Carter, a regular, said as she bought a bouquet. "You and Tom deserve better." I smiled, but inside, I was still piecing myself together. The shop thrived, its bell chiming constantly with orders for funerals, birthdays, and even a big hotel contract in Nashville, 45 miles away. Each arrangement I made felt like a reclaiming of my life, a defiance of Harold and Laura's plot to take it. But the victory was bittersweet. Late at night, alone in my shop, I'd trace the edges of old photos. Tom's graduation, our family at the county fair, and feel the sting of what was lost. I'd learned hard lessons through this fire. First, self-respect is your anchor. No one can take your worth unless you let them. I'd fought for my shop, my dignity, and won. Second, family isn't just blood. It's the ones who stand by you, like Tom and Eleanor, when the world falls apart. Finally, forgiveness isn't weakness, but a choice to heal. I didn't forgive Harold or Laura for their sake, but for mine, to free myself from their poison. One evening, as Tom and I closed the shop, he looked at me, his eyes softer than they'd been in weeks. "Mom, you didn't just save the shop, you saved us," he said, his voice thick. I hugged him, tears prickling. "We saved each other, Tom. We were bruised but not broken. Franklin had seen our pain but also our strength. Now, I wanted the world to hear our story, to know what it means to stand tall after betrayal. I'd share every detail, every lesson, and let the town's whispers carry my truth further. To anyone who'd listen, as the sun set over Franklin, Tennessee, I stood in petals of grace, the soft glow of the shop's lights casting shadows on the roses and lilies I'd arranged with trembling hands all those months ago. The pain of Harold and Laura's betrayal still lingers, like a bruise that fades but never fully heals. But in this quiet moment, surrounded by the blooms that carried me through, I feel a strength I never knew I had. Tom's laughter from the back room, where he's sorting delivery orders, is a reminder that we've rebuilt something stronger than what we lost. This town, with its whispers and its warmth, saw our fall and our rise. My story isn't just about revenge, it's about finding yourself when the world tries to tear you apart. I've learned that no betrayal can break you unless you let it, and that family is the people who stay, like Tom, like Eleanor, through the darkest storms. I'm sharing this with you because someone out there needs to hear it. Maybe you've been hurt, betrayed, or made to feel small. I want you to know you're not alone. If my story touched you, please hit that like button. It means more than you know. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, or share your own story of standing tall. And if you want more stories like mine, subscribe to the Unwanted Revenge. It's where we uncover the truth and find our strength together. Thank you for being here, for listening to a woman who lost everything but found herself. Keep watching, keep fighting, and let's meet again in the next story. With love and courage from Franklin.